we're coming out of we're not that far out of World War II in Korea, and things are racially aren't improving.
Now,
See, we remember now. You have to go back a little bit. You have the civil rights movement, the civil rights case. Laws that passed in what the 50s, uh, and but still things aren't working, so to speak. We're still having people killed. Discrimination. The Ku Klux Klan is reigning supreme. There are no jobs. So there's a big social movement to do something. And I consider myself an integrationist. I've helped integrate a whole lot of things. Started out with hate, ended up with friends. And I see this movement as further following my principle of integration. That the nation has come out of a war, and we are still very much separated. By bringing attention and getting all these people involved, thought was, how can I be involved? And when they started talking about crowd control, then that's where I thought I might be a little help. Now we get with Hobson, who is the local head of CORE, and he's a charismatic kind of person. He had hundreds of people showing up that want to do something. But we'd meet and we'd yak the yak and nothing would happen because nobody had, how do you do this? It's never been done before.
what was the plan that was developed?
There was no plan. So Hobson would set up a meeting and hundreds of us would show up someplace and we'd talk about it. But we weren't getting anywhere. And that was frustrating me because I want to move, I want to do something. I resonated with Hobson because being ex-military himself, he could relate to a structure. And that's what we were looking for, a structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, here it is. It's August 23rd, 1968. And what take me through the day?
Well, you have to first, the planning that goes into that, you have to set yourself up, because the police can't be everywhere. You have to set yourself up where if we find something is in a certain place, that we can get the police there. How do you contact the police? Now, you're talking about your camera with a chip rather than tape. Radios were not that available at that time. Our big problem, it was how you're going to communicate, because you have to have two radios. See, you have to have one channel where you communicate among yourselves, but you have to have another channel that can go up, because everybody's talking on the same channel at the same time. You got confusion. It was one hell of a time finding radios. Something as simple as that. For example, I was on top of the Washington Monument where Martin Luther King the Lincoln Memorial, when King was making his speech. If that camera had panned up, you'd see me at the top. Well, I can't talk to those number 1, 2, 3 people. It'd be confusion. I have to come down the chain, or the information has to come up the chain, so we can. And the police, the deputy police person, was with me, so then he could go down his chain. So since I knew where each one of these groups was located, and he knew where they were located, then if we say Team 1, he could immediately contact the police. They can come up with a riot squad and do something about it. We had no weapons. Our instruction was to surround the troublemakers. And if in your number 1 group you didn't have enough people, you called in the number 2 group. Or you went up the line and you called in somebody that may be a block away.
Now, so the police, the various police organizations, because I saw the list.
Well, the big thing for us was dealing with the deputy chief of police.
And that's what you were. You were the liaison directly to him.
Right.
So they called if they had called you, were you standing next to him basically?
Mostly, but I had direct radio contact with him.
Okay. Did it seem that the police were as interested as you were?
Very much so. Because, see, remember when things go bad, the police department gets blamed. They get little praise when they do it right, but they get a lot of blame if things go wrong, things that you can't control. And so they were interested in all the help they could get in being able to isolate any potential threat. Thing there, see, this is hard. When you talk about Nazis at this time, it seems so remote. But at that time, the races were sort of all categorized as Nazis. And the thinking was that they would infiltrate the group and try to make it a failure by having a mob action, get everybody fighting everybody. That was the thinking of the March planners. They were concerned that somebody would try to convert it into a mob action. I'm sure they would agree to meet at a certain place at a certain time, check radios to make sure the communication's open, and then to spread out, because the crowd now is, the map that I showed you is starting down in the vicinity of the Washington Monument. And now the main march is going up Constitution Avenue. There's another interesting there. One of the people in the front row was Lena Horne.
Of the marchers?
Yes. I had been Lena Horne's escort in Fort Huachuca in the 1944, I think. She was a part of USO show, and when those shows came to the military, somebody is appointed as their escort. I happened to be in the room, and they were looking around, hey, you're it. And so I got to escort Lena Horne all around the Fort Huachuca Weather Division. And then in '63, when I saw her, I said, you know, I remember when you were at Fort Huachuca. She says, I remember you. I don't know if she's lying or not, but it was a good story.
And so you're watching the whole crowd,
right,
and you're able to call down
right,
if you see anything.
And I have binoculars up there, okay, so I can look to, if I get a report in a certain segment, I can look at that segment so the deputy chief can do the same thing. But the main thing, the theory was, if we say in this sector something's going on, he immediately communicates with the police group that's closest to that. Because, see, they have the police power to go in and do something about it. They can arrest. Mm-hmm. They can take somebody out of the group. Of course, we can't do anything except surround them. And if it gets more and more violent, to have more and more people surround you, it's hard to fight in a crowd if the crowd around you is friendly. I'm talking about if you're the enemy. See, think in terms, you've got 4 or 5 people, and you're going to attack right here. But then slowly but surely, all the people surrounding you are not friends. What can you do?
So, as the day's unfolding, your guys that are out there are basically playing it by ear, by feel. That's
right,
all they can do. Mm-hmm. As you're on top of the Lincoln Memorial, what do you see?
We see a friendly group that's being inspired by the famous speech. And you hear King's speech. I still get chills when I hear that speech. I felt good that I'd had a chance to participate in probably one of the greatest public events that our nation has ever seen.